A shocking scene unfolded on live TV as President Donald Trump, the 47th U.S. President, broke down in tears while honoring his close friend Charlie Kirk after a tragic shooting at Utah Valley University. The night had begun with energy, students cheering as Charlie spoke with passion about faith, freedom, and the strength of young Americans. Then, a single gunshot shattered the moment. Panic swept the hall, screams filled the air, and Charlie collapsed as his microphone hit the floor. Security rushed in, but it was too late. News spread instantly. Charlie Kirk had been assassinated on campus. Headlines flashed across the nation, leaving Americans in disbelief. From living rooms to college dorms, the country fell silent. In Washington, President Trump was briefed and stood frozen, gripping the table with glassy eyes. To him, Charlie wasn't just a political ally. He was like family. Whispering to himself, Trump said softly, "No, not Charlie. Not him." The nation seemed to stop as Americans tried to process what had just happened. Before sunrise, every news channel replayed the shocking footage. Students who had been there spoke through tears, voices shaking as they recalled how Charlie had been talking about hope moments before his life was taken. At only 31, Charlie Kirk was more than a conservative leader. He was a husband, a father of two, and the driving force behind Turning Point USA, an organization he had built from the ground up to inspire young people. Now, his story had ended in violence on a college stage. Messages of grief poured in from across the country. Conservative leaders called him a hero, and even longtime critics admitted he had a rare gift for moving people. Social media filled with tributes, photos of Charlie, Bible verses, prayers for his wife Erica and their children. At the White House, an aide brought President Trump a draft statement, but he refused to read it. With his voice breaking, he whispered, "This isn't politics. This is personal." Later, he retreated to his residence, sitting in silence as he stared at a photo of him and Charlie at a rally. For the first time in years, he felt truly broken. Cameras filled the East Room of the White House as President Trump stepped up to the podium. His face looked weary, his eyes red from tears. When he tried to speak, his voice cracked and the room fell silent. Across the nation, millions leaned in to watch. The great and truly legendary Charlie Kirk is gone, Trump began, his lips trembling. No one understood or cared for the youth of America more than Charlie. He was admired by many, especially by me, and now he is no longer with us. He paused, his shoulders shaking as a single tear rolled down his cheek. A rare sight. Reporters lowered their cameras and people watching at home gasped. With a softer voice, Trump added, "Melania and I send our deepest sympathies to his beautiful wife, Erica, and their family. Charlie, we love you." The room stayed still, filled only with quiet sobs. This was not the fiery Trump of rallies, but a grieving man mourning a dear friend before the nation. The next morning, the White House announced that flags across America would fly at half-staff. From small schools to federal buildings, the stars and stripes hung low in solemn tribute. In Utah, students gathered outside the campus, candles glowing in their hands. Some wore Turning Point USA shirts, while others held handmade signs reading, "Charlie's voice lives on," and "Faith over fear." Tears ran down their faces as they prayed for Erica and the couple's two young children. From the Oval Office, President Trump looked out the window at flags lowered across Washington. His lips tightened, his hands trembling as he whispered, "Charlie should be here." He knew he had to speak for millions who shared the same grief. Outside, reporters described a country stunned into silence. Even those who had disagreed with Charlie admitted his passion for inspiring young Americans was unmatched. The lowered flags became a symbol of the nation's sorrow, reflecting both unity and loss. In Arizona, Erica Kirk sat in her living room, surrounded by family. Her two children clung to her, too young to understand the depth of what had happened. The home that once echoed with Charlie's laughter now felt painfully empty. Scrolling through her phone, Erica saw tribute after tribute. Students saying Charlie gave them courage, parents saying he gave them hope. But her heart was too broken to take it in. The only thought that remained was, He promised he'd be home tonight. In Washington, Trump asked for a direct line to Erica. When she answered, her voice cracked. "Mr. President, he looked up to you so much." Through his own tears, Trump whispered back, "And I looked up to him too. Erica, America is with you. I am with you." The line went silent, but the silence carried more weight than words. For Erica, grief became her constant companion. For Trump, the burden of comforting a shattered family only deepened his own sorrow. Across the country, churches opened their doors. From grand cathedrals in New York to small rural chapels, people gathered with candles and bowed heads. Pastors led prayers, reminding communities of faith and hope in the face of tragedy. Across the country, churches reminded their congregations that Charlie Kirk had been a man of faith, unafraid to speak truth in a hostile world. In Salt Lake City, hundreds of students gathered on the steps of the state capitol, their voices trembling as they sang "Amazing Grace." Some held hands, others wept openly, and the hymn carried through the night air like a defiant stand against hate and violence. Television cameras captured the scene, showing Americans not only mourning, but also standing united. The loss of one young leader had awakened the nation, exposing how fragile life was and how quickly political hate could turn deadly. From the White House residence, President Trump watched the vigils live. His eyes filled with tears as he saw teenagers holding candles and whispering prayers for Erica and the children. For a moment, he closed his eyes, letting the music wash over him. When he opened them, his resolve hardened. "I must speak again, louder, stronger, for Charlie." By midday, every major network carried the announcement. The president would address the nation that evening. Headlines flashed, "President to deliver emotional tribute after Kirk assassination." Families gathered around TVs, students prepared live streams in dorms, and church groups organized watch parties. Everyone knew this speech would be unlike any other, deeply personal. Inside the West Wing, staff moved in near silence. The usual rush of politics and strategy was gone, replaced with a heavy, reverent stillness. No one dared break it. President Trump sat at his desk, scribbling notes, crossing out lines, and starting again. Every word had to be genuine. An aide leaned in quietly and asked, "Sir, are you ready?" Trump looked up slowly, his eyes red from hours of reflection. "This isn't about being ready," he replied. "It's about honoring my friend." Across the nation, people braced for the broadcast. Whispers of fear spread. Was this tragedy just the beginning? Would political violence grow even worse? For now, one thing was certain. America was waiting to hear Trump speak from both grief and truth. In his private study, Trump paced with the draft trembling in his hand. Melania entered silently, her face heavy with sorrow. She rested a hand on his shoulder and said softly, "Let them see your heart, Donald. They need to feel what you feel." He nodded but said nothing. Known as a fighter who rarely showed emotion, tonight he would have to reveal his pain as a man mourning someone he saw as a brother. Memories of Charlie flooded his mind. Walking together at rallies, joking backstage, standing side by side before crowds of young people. The images cut deep, but they also strengthened his resolve. In the West Wing, aides debated which network should carry the address. Trump cut in firmly. "All of them. Every American must hear this. Charlie deserves nothing less." In that moment, the weight of leadership merged with the ache of personal loss. Trump knew he had to speak not just as a president, but as a grieving friend. That night, President Trump prepared to face the nation, not just as its leader, but as a grieving friend carrying the sorrow of millions. Washington was unusually quiet. Outside the White House, crowds gathered with candles, some holding posters of Charlie Kirk, others simply standing in silence. Inside the East Room, cameras were positioned, and reporters sat hushed, knowing this would not be a night for politics but for raw truth. Across America, families filled living rooms. Parents told their children, "You need to hear this." College students, still shaken by the Utah shooting, tuned in with tear-streaked faces. Social media feeds fell silent as millions prepared to watch together. Backstage, Trump stared at the podium, his chest heavy, his body tense. The words he had written felt too small for the grief he carried. Slowly, he let the paper slip from his hand, choosing instead to speak from the heart. A staffer signaled it was time. As the cameras went live, Trump walked forward. The East Room glowed softly, and the nation's eyes locked on him. He stood still, gripping the podium, trying to steady his breath. The silence was absolute. Finally, with a trembling voice, he whispered, "My fellow Americans." His words cracked. He lowered his head, shoulders shaking, then looked up again, tears streaming down his face. Reporters expecting headlines sat frozen. This wasn't politics. This was pain. Charlie Kirk, a man I loved and admired deeply, is gone, Trump continued, choking back emotion. The great and truly legendary Charlie is dead. The words echoed across televisions and phones, cutting into the hearts of millions. For once, America saw something rare. A president stripped of armor, grieving openly. That night, America saw a president stripped of politics, mourning as a friend. It was clear this speech would be remembered for generations. As Trump's tears fell, families across the nation wiped their own. College students who had once cheered for Charlie now sobbed, while even longtime critics sat silent, unable to deny the raw sincerity in Trump's voice. No one understood the heart of America's youth better than Charlie, Trump said, his hand trembling as he gripped the podium. He was loved by all, especially by me. In Utah, students who had survived the shooting huddled around phones and laptops. Some wept uncontrollably, whispering, "He really knew Charlie." Others clasped hands in prayer as the president's words filled the room. Online, hashtags spread like wildfire, "We love Charlie and Trump tribute." For once, the nation wasn't split by red or blue. America was united in grief, mourning a man whose voice had been silenced and watching a president bare his broken heart. Trump's voice wavered as he spoke. Then he stopped mid-sentence, pressing a hand to his face. The camera zoomed in as his shoulders shook. In a whisper, he said, "Charlie, we love you." The words were unscripted, heavy with meaning. Under the lights, his tears glistened. Reporters lowered their pens. Some wiped their own eyes. "It isn't the president you're seeing," one commentator later said. It was Donald Trump, mourning his friend. Trump pressed on, his voice breaking, "Melania and I send our deepest sympathies to Erica and the children." Charlie was a husband, a father, a son, a man of God, and a giant in conservatism. Tonight, America cries with his family. Across the country, silence filled homes as though each person had lost someone close. For the first time, Americans weren't just hearing about tragedy, they were feeling it together. And in that shared grief, a nation found unity. The stage was set for Trump's most powerful appeal to the nation. He steadied himself at the podium, his voice trembling yet growing stronger. Charlie Kirk was not just a leader, he said. He was a martyr for truth and freedom. The words landed like thunder, leaving audiences across America stunned. With fresh tears in his eyes, Trump continued. He helped build the MAGA movement. He gave his life for the values we all hold dear: faith, freedom, and love of our country. His tone wasn't fiery like at rallies. It was raw, vulnerable, and deeply human. An assassin tried to silence him with a bullet, Trump said, pausing as his lips shook. But that assassin failed, because Charlie's voice will live on in every American heart. In living rooms, silence gripped families. Parents held their children close. A mother whispered to her son, "Remember this day." For a nation used to division, the president's words brought an unexpected unity. Leaning forward, gripping the podium tightly, Trump's voice shifted, still heavy with grief but now carrying warning. This rhetoric, this demonizing of good Americans, has led to terrorism. It led to this assassination, and it nearly took my life last year. Gasps rippled through the press room as the weight of his words sank in. He pressed on, his voice shaking but resolute. Charlie Kirk was called names. He was smeared as a Nazi, a criminal, a monster. And now, hate has answered with a bullet. Wiping his eyes, he added quietly, "This is a dark moment for America." Across the country, viewers shivered. Many wept, realizing how fragile their freedom suddenly felt. On camera, Trump's tear-stained face reflected not just grief, but a nation's pain. Trump's face was unguarded, raw. For once, the world didn't see him as a political warrior, but as a grieving man pleading with his country to wake up. This wasn't just a speech, it was a cry for America's soul. His voice softened, breaking into pauses heavy with emotion. "Tonight," he said, "I ask every American to commit to the values Charlie lived and died for. Free speech, citizenship, the rule of law, and love of God." Across the nation, people stood in silence, some placing hands over their hearts. The weight of his words pierced through the screen. We cannot let hate win. We cannot let Charlie's sacrifice be forgotten. Together, we must carry his message forward. His voice trembled, but his words rang steady. In Utah, vigils swelled as students repeated his plea: free speech, citizenship, love of God. Soon, it became a chant, echoing through the night. The moment was electric. Politics seemed to fade, replaced by the image of a president weeping not just for his friend, but for the future of the nation. His tears fell for Charlie and for America itself. Across the Midwest, families cried together in their living rooms. In New York City, diners went silent, forks suspended as the president wiped his eyes. In a Texas firehouse, soot-streaked firefighters stood with helmets off, tears running down their faces. One whispered, "He's hurting, just like the rest of us." This tribute was more than a speech. It became a mirror of the nation's grief. For the first time in years, Americans of every background felt the same heartbreak. They weren't just mourning Charlie Kirk, they were mourning the loss of innocence and the shattering reminder of how fragile their peace truly was. Political hatred had turned deadly, and America felt it together. On social media, streams of comments poured in. "I'm crying with the president. Charlie's legacy will live on. God bless Trump for showing his heart tonight." It was as if the whole nation had paused, united in grief. In Arizona, Erica Kirk sat in her living room, her children asleep in the next room, teddy bears still in their hands. The TV flickered as Trump's voice broke through the silence. When she heard him whisper, "Charlie, we love you," her tears flowed uncontrollably. Covering her mouth, she whispered back at the screen, "He loved you too, Mr. President." For a grieving widow, the words cut deep yet soothed at the same time. Charlie's absence felt like a hollow wound, but Trump's tribute reminded her his life had not been in vain. Messages of support buzzed across her phone, but only the president's words reached her soul. He wasn't speaking as the most powerful man in the world. He was speaking as her husband's friend. Clutching her chest, she whispered, "Charlie, you're not forgotten." Beyond America's borders, the world was watching. In London, commentators called Trump's tears a rare glimpse of vulnerability. In Israel, leaders praised Charlie's pro-Israel advocacy. In South America, students lit candles for a man they had never met but whose call for freedom crossed oceans. In Washington, foreign diplomats sat stunned, whispering that history was unfolding before their eyes. For ordinary Americans, the moment was even more personal. "I've never seen him like this," one woman sobbed on a radio call-in show. "It feels like he's crying with us, not at us." What began as a tribute to Charlie Kirk had become something larger, a turning point, an emotional wave that swept across continents and left millions speechless. At the podium, Trump's grip tightened as his voice faltered again. "Charlie was the best of America," he whispered, his throat heavy with grief. Trump paused, his eyes glassy before speaking with trembling conviction. "The monster who killed him wasn't just attacking Charlie, he was attacking our whole country." The East Room grew unbearably still. Reporters lowered their pens. They weren't chasing headlines anymore. They were watching history. The president's face flushed as he fought to stay composed. For a moment, it seemed the weight of grief might break him. But then he lifted his head, eyes burning with resolve. Charlie Kirk will not be forgotten. Not now, not ever. His fist tapped the podium lightly. He gave his life for truth, for freedom, for the future of this country. In homes across America, tears streamed down faces. Families, students, church congregations whispered, "God bless you, Mr. President." It no longer felt like a broadcast. It felt like a national funeral, and Trump was both mourner and messenger. Outside the White House gates, crowds gathered with candles, kneeling on the pavement as they prayed, "Lord, receive Charlie." Some recited the Lord's Prayer, others just wept, clutching flags lowered to half-staff. In Utah, hundreds of students returned to the steps where Charlie had fallen. His speeches played on loudspeakers as Trump's broken tribute echoed from their phones. The voices merged, haunting, like two friends speaking across eternity. Police officers guarding the White House stood silently, hats over their chests. Even hardened veterans wiped at their eyes. "Never thought I'd see this," one whispered. Social media filled with videos of vigils springing up from Florida beaches to Ohio streets, with people kneeling in prayer, their phones glowing with Trump's tearful image. The nation was no longer just watching, it was grieving together. Trump's voice cracked once more as he delivered the words that etched themselves into memory. Once again, a bullet has silenced one of the most eloquent truth-tellers of our era. My dear friend, Charlie Kirk was America's relentless crusader for free speech. He stopped, pressing both hands against the podium, shoulders trembling. Trump pressed both hands flat against the podium and wept openly. The cameras did not cut away. The world saw a president undone, his sobs echoing through the East Room. "Charlie is already in paradise with the angels," he said, voice raw. "We pray for Erica and the children. And we ask Charlie's prayers for our country." The silence in the room was absolute. Millions watching at home could not hold back their tears. Some clutched Bibles, others dropped to their knees. Parents hugged their children, whispering, "Remember this moment. This is history." As the broadcast reached its peak, the grief became unbearable. Yet out of it, a strange unity was born. The nation wept not only for Charlie, but alongside their president. Trump lifted his head, eyes swollen with tears, and stared into the cameras. His words shook but carried weight. Charlie inspired millions. And tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and sorrow. Every corner of America felt those words. In a farmhouse in Iowa, a grandmother wiped her eyes as grandchildren sat silent beside her. In Los Angeles, drivers pulled over on the freeway, listening on the radio with tears streaming down their cheeks. Never before had a nation watched its leader break so completely, turning grief into leadership. Even networks that often criticized Trump left their cameras rolling, unwilling to interrupt the raw truth unfolding live. On social media, one comment read, "He's carrying our sorrow with his own tears." Another said, "I've never cried like this in front of my TV." The moment felt suspended in time, as if the entire country had stopped breathing, waiting for his next trembling words. Outside, the ripple of emotion spread even further. From New York to Phoenix, churches opened their doors late into the night. Strangers gathered, holding hands, praying for Charlie's soul and for Erica and the children left behind. In Washington, thousands filled the streets outside the White House, candles glowing in the darkness. The sound of hymns and whispered prayers rose into the night air, mingling with the faint glow of flags lowered halfway down their poles. "We stand with you, Mr. President. We stand for Charlie." Those words echoed across crowds outside the White House and on giant screens in Times Square, where hundreds stood silently. In a city known for noise and chaos, there was stillness. No music, no distractions, only the trembling voice of a president mourning his friend. On live television, a commentator choked up mid-sentence. "This is not about politics anymore. This is about the soul of America." For one night, division faded. A single man's grief had brought an entire nation to its knees in shared sorrow. As the broadcast neared its end, Trump's voice softened to a whisper. Charlie Kirk was the best of America. He believed in God, in family, in freedom. And though he is gone, his message must live. His lips trembled, tears streaming, but his gaze stayed firm. Tonight, I beg every American, honor Charlie by living the values he stood for. Let us never be silent in the face of hate. Let us never forget him. Reporters in the East Room wiped their eyes. Cameramen, usually stoic, fought back tears. At home, millions sobbed, parents whispering to their children, "This is history. Don't forget this night." Trump's final words rang with grief, yet carried hope. Charlie is in paradise with the angels. We pray for Erica and the children, and we ask his prayers for our country. The camera lingered on his tear-streaked face before the screen faded to black. Across the nation, silence held heavy. Hearts shattered yet strangely united in love for country and its fallen hero. The broadcast ended, but its echo lived on. People poured into streets, parks, and churches, candles in hand, as if drawn by an unseen force. In Chicago, in small towns, on beaches, in city squares, the same sight repeated. Americans gathered together, mourning one man, one message, one loss that bound them all. In Dallas, crowds gathered at City Hall softly chanting, "Charlie lives on." By the riverfront, voices rose in hymns. And in Utah, where the tragedy began, the lawn of Utah Valley University became a sea of candles. Students laid flowers on the steps where Charlie had fallen, their tears mixing with whispered prayers. Some held posters with his face, others simply stood in silence, hands over their hearts. The nation had not seen such unity in years. For one night, political lines disappeared. A young woman in Florida filmed her vigil and wrote, "Tonight we're not red or blue. We're just broken Americans praying for a better tomorrow." Trump's grief had stirred something long dormant, a sense of shared humanity. Television networks replayed his address through the night. Analysts, often quick to argue, spoke with trembling voices. "We just witnessed the most human moment of this presidency," one said. That wasn't a politician. That was a friend grieving for a nation. Clips of Trump breaking down went viral worldwide. Even his critics admitted they had never seen him so vulnerable. "I may not agree with him," one commentator whispered, "but tonight I felt his pain." On social media, everyday Americans posted tributes. Parents filmed themselves hugging their children tighter. Students shared how Charlie had inspired them to speak out. Pastors preached about faith, forgiveness, and courage in dark times. At the White House, Trump watched some of the coverage in silence. His eyes were swollen from tears, but a quiet strength lingered. He knew his words had done something no law or policy ever could. They had touched the soul of the nation. For once, America wasn't arguing. It was grieving together. Meanwhile, in Arizona, Erica Kirk sat in her living room as the glow of neighbors' vigil candles flickered through her window. She had stayed awake all night, replaying Trump's tribute again and again. Each time he spoke Charlie's name, she wept, but also felt a fragile peace. Her children stirred in their sleep, innocent to the storm outside. Erica whispered softly, "Charlie's spirit will live through them." Thousands of messages poured in. Texts, emails, voicemails from strangers, messages poured in, thanking Erica for sharing Charlie with the world. Yet it was Trump's words that stayed with her most. Charlie was loved and admired by all, especially me. That line echoed in her mind, wrapping her in comfort. Though grief pressed heavily on her heart, Erica felt strength stirring again. She realized she wasn't only Charlie's widow, she was now the guardian of his legacy. Standing by the window, watching candle flames flicker in the night, she whispered, "Charlie, they won't forget you. Neither will I." When the broadcast ended, the silence it left behind was overwhelming. Across the nation, families sat motionless, as if they had just left a funeral together. In small towns, neighbors knocked on doors to pray. In cities, strangers lit candles and stood shoulder to shoulder, united in grief. At the White House, Trump sat alone. The cameras were gone, no applause followed, the room empty. But he had given everything, his voice, his tears, his soul, for his fallen friend. Into the stillness, he whispered, "Charlie, I hope I honored you tonight." His eyes closed, and for the first time, he cried in solitude, not as a president, but as a man mourning a brother. By dawn, America had changed. News anchors called it one of the most emotional moments in presidential history. Clips of Trump's breaking voice replayed endlessly, stirring new waves of sorrow. Church bells tolled across the nation. Schools began with moments of silence. Businesses paused meetings to bow their heads. Flags, already at half-mast, seemed to droop lower under the weight of mourning. For Erica, the new day brought unexpected comfort. She turned on the television and saw millions standing with her family. Charlie's name was not fading. It was rising, carried by the president's tribute and the love of a nation. Across the nation, people who once argued politics now sat quietly, united in grief. In Ohio, a man summed it up with a trembling voice. "Charlie's gone, but somehow we're closer as Americans today." That evening, President Trump released one final statement. Charlie Kirk is already in paradise with the angels, but his message will live on. He was a crusader for freedom, and America will not forget him. His words swept across the country like a final blessing. In Arizona, Erica lit a candle with her children at her side. Across all 50 states, vigils continued. And in Utah, thousands stood in silence on the very steps where Charlie had once spoken, their candles glowing like stars against the night sky. Charlie was gone, but his spirit remained, alive in prayers, in unity, and in the trembling voice of a president who dared to weep for his friend before the world. It was a night America would never forget, a night that proved grief can bind a nation more strongly than hate. My friends, if this story touched your heart, if you cried with America and felt the pain of President Trump's tribute, don't leave in silence. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Leave your prayers, your tears, and your voice for freedom. And if you want to go deeper with us, join our membership today for special features and to become part of our family. Together, let's keep Charlie's legacy alive and stand with our president as he continues to fight for truth and for America.